Well, hello, friends. Thanks for dropping in today. My name is Rob Conery. I work at Microsoft, and I'm going to be talking about making a template out of your .NET project that you can share with your coworkers, share with yourself, share with whomever wants it. I built one of these things, and it was really fun. I did it using ASP.NET Minimal API and Vue 3. And the reason I'm telling you all this is that you can wrap some complicated stuff inside of a template that you can then share with the world. And this one is up on NuGet. And if you wanted to play with it, you certainly can. You can go to .NET New, install vue.web.starter, and then it'll download the package and then install it into your templates for .NET New. And then you're off and running. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So before we get started, I do want to point out that I'll be working in the CLI a lot today. I'm working on a Mac. But if you're working on a Windows machine, PowerShell commands will work the exact same way. It's all bash. Also, I'll be working in VS Code, but you can do all of this in Visual Studio, and I'll try and call out any differences as we go along. All right, well, the first thing I want to do is let's take a look at all of the templates that I have installed already, and I can do .NET New and then -- list. And by the way, if you're on a Mac and you want to have this IntelliSense here, it's fig.io. Go up to fig.io and then you can install this little thing. It's really handy, a lot of fun. And I love it because obviously having a little IntelliSense in there is very useful. Okay, so what are all these? These are all your templates for .NET New. And as you can see, here's the two I was talking about, or the one I was talking about before, .NET New Vue. I also have .NET New Svelte. The ones that come installed, if you have ASP.NET, you get React and Angular, MVC, Web App, and so on. So you probably are familiar with these, but what we're going to do is we're going to make our own today. So to do that, I am going to, as you can see, I'm in the .NET Conf directory. I'm going to do .NET New, and then let's do a Web App, and I'm just going to call this main for now. Here we go. Okay, so listing things out. It's ls-la. You can see that I have main in here. So let's go into main and take a look around at what we have. We have our pages, program.cs, properties, blah, 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 blah. None of that's really important. What is important is this next step right here. What we need to do is we need to make a directory called .template.config. And don't forget that little dot right there in the very beginning. Now that we've done that, we need to add a file. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up VS Code here. There we are, and you can see here is our new directory, and this is of course, our ASP.NET website. So inside here, I'm going to add a file called template.json. This is where all the settings for the template are going to live. Now, what you could do is you could go to Microsoft's Learn documentation, and you could download the schema that you need to alter, or since you're watching this, I should have a link in the talk notes to a gist, and that gist will tell you how to install a snippet, and that snippet is called template. All right, so inside of here, let's go over this quickly. You can see we have the schema definition up there. We can ignore that. The author, of course, is me. Default name, I'm just going to call this my template. I'm going to call this main, just all caps. Just leave it at main. Call it whatever you want, but that's what I'm calling this. So the next thing is repository. So let's assume that we're going to go Rob Conery. And then for the short name, I'm going to call this fun. Why not? The release notes. If people go up to NuGet and want to know what's different, you can type in lorem ipsum. And hopefully a Copilot's going to help me out here. Copilot, are you there? Yes. Awesome. Okay. Next thing we need to do is we need to put in the identity of the project. So the identity is going to be a unique name for the template. And I'm also putting that in as source name, but we're probably going to want to change that, and I'll explain why in a second. So the name for this, we'll call it Rob's Fun Generator. Why not? Short name, and that is the big one. We're going to call this just fun. So this is going to be .NET New Fun. It's going to generate all of the code we see in here. Now, some of this can be confusing. This template isn't exactly straightforward when you're going through the schema here. What exactly are we doing, and where does it all go? So the identity is going to be the unique name of the template. As you can see, it's telling us right there, unique name for the template. The source name is what is going to be replaced. As you can see, the documentation here. When someone comes in and says .NET New, and they do -n whatever, that command is going to go through all of the code that's inside of your project here and replace it. So what we want to do, since I called this thing main, we want to make sure that the source name here is changed. to main because that's the source that's going to be replaced. Probably should have capitalized that. Anyway, okay, and then finally, so down below here we have tags. This can be a little bit confusing. In fact, it can be a lot confusing. Let's just leave this. We'll leave language, and then we'll leave type as a project. That's what we need to have that. But up here, classifications. You see it says web and ASP.NET. I'm going to leave those, but why am I saying that this is confusing? Really quickly, let's open up a console inside of VS Code. And here's a little tip from me to you. If you open up the command palette and type in terminal, you're going to see create new terminal and editor area. The reason I'm showing you this is because I find it insanely useful. And it's even got a little shortcut here, shift command, and because I'm on a Mac, but you can also do shift control /. And the reason that that's fun is because, boom, look at this. I now have a tabbed CLI inside of here that I can work right inside of my project directory. Now I do know that I can also open up the terminal window over here, but I just find this easier. All right, why am I doing all of this? Because something I want to show you here is if I do .NET new again and -- list, and then I have to close this so we can see this better. If you look over here, you can see these are called tags. Now, this is confusing because in our template, tags down below say language and type, and web and ASP.NET is called classifications. However, in the .NET new list, the classifications are called tags. Just something to be aware of. And then here you can see language, and that's what's taken out from our language specification. Okay, what is the last thing we need to do here before we are done? Well, since we're making a template, there's a lot of stuff in here we don't need, like these bin and object directories. You can take all that out. In fact, you can take out the properties directory too. This is all generated when the template is installed. So we want to make this as lightweight as we possibly can. There we go. All right, so we're going to close this. We're going to check and make sure that our settings here are good to go, and they are. So let's buy ourselves a little room there. And now to install this in our template cache, we do .NET new install, and it's going to install this project into our .NET new cache. And there we go. Rob's Fun Generator, short name is fun, language is C#, web ASP.NET. That is what we want to see. All right, so let's jump out of here now. And now what I'm going to do is go back into the CLI, and I am going to do .NET new, again, list. Now we come down here, you can see Rob's Fun Generator. Neat. So let's install that. So I'm going to come up here, and then I'm going to do .NET new fun -n, and we'll call it buddy, because why not? Great. So now if we take a look in our directory, you can see we have buddy. That's not exactly surprising. But if we open this up in VS Code now, there we go. You can see we have, there's the bin and the obj directory. We have VS Code up here that is installed by VS Code, of course. And then down below, you can see this is called buddy.csproj. And that is exactly what we want. So this is great for personal use. In fact, what I could do is I could put this up on GitHub, and every time I get a new machine, I could pull down this thing and install it. And then from now on, I do .NET new, whatever my template is, and then I'm off the ground and running, which is fun. Okay, but what if you want to share this with the world? So you could put it up on GitHub, tell people to fork it, and then download it, and then navigate to the directory, and then .NET new install, and then it installs it in their template cache. Or you could share this on NuGet, creating a NuGet package, which is what we're going to do next. Our next task is going to be to share our template with everybody, and we can do that on NuGet by wrapping up our template code inside of a template package project. So to do this, the first thing I'm going to do is let's examine our directory, and you can see here's our template code. We can ignore buddy for now because that is a templated project. But what I need to do is I need to create a project that's going to hold main. Now before I get going here, I do want to show you the documentation for this. Links for these docs are going to be in the talk notes. But the first thing is a tutorial here, and it's under fundamentals. But as you cruise through here, on down below here, we get to a very important part. We need to create a brand new project, and it's going to be a console application. It could be any project we want, any project type. What we really need is we just need that csproj file. Because if you don't know, a csproj file is just a chunk of XML that tells MS Build how to build things. So that's what we're going to do first. And then the second thing that we need to do is we need to fill out the XML that goes into the csproj file. We need to change it all out. So we're going to do that. But before I even get going, and I'm going to address this later on Now, if we go down over here, there's a little bit in this paragraph right here, there's a little bit of inconsistency in terms of naming. It trips a few people up, tripped me up, in terms of what you name things. So here it's saying that you should have a templates folder in your project. I'm going to talk about this in just 2 seconds. But in the diagram here, they show content. And I think I'm going to talk to the docs team about this. I think this is a small mistake. So that should say templates. But anyway, don't get tripped up on that if you decide to read about this later on. If you want to see stuff in more in-depth, you can head over to the second link. This dives deeper into custom templates for .NET New, which is what we're trying to create here. And finally, you're going to see me use some snippets, and this is going to be in a gist that I have a link to in the talk notes. You can drop this in to your snippets, and you can work with the snippets like you've seen me do. All right, so let's go back over to our terminal, and like I've been doing, I'm going to do some work in Bash because I find it is faster than using the UI. But all the commands you see me do, you can do in PowerShell. Just want to say that one more time. All right, so the first thing I need to do here is I'm going to create a .NET New console, and then I'm going to call this just package. You can call it anything you want. The name of the directory doesn't matter. What does matter is that XML file, the CSproj file. So I'm going to do that. Great. And now that we've done this, what I need to do is I need to make a directory that is going to hold our content. So we're going to make a directory called package and then templates. And that's going to hold all of our code. Speaking of, I'm going to do a cp-r, which is copy recursively everything in main right here. Everything in main, copy it recursively to package and templates. So once I do that, all the code that we need to move around is in place and ready for us, which is great. So let's go into package, and then I'm going to open it up with VS Code. All right, when VS Code opens up, you might get a little, there it is, a little warning that says, hey, do you want to add stuff that's missing for debugging, blah, blah, blah. Don't ask again. And the reason why is we want to keep this package lean and mean. In fact, what I'm going to do, sometimes these stay away, sometimes they don't. VS Code will helpfully drop things in there for you. But the last thing I need to delete out of here is program.cs. That's it. Well, there they are. It's okay. They will not get included in the build. That's fine. Let's check the templates directory. Good. Inside of here, you can see all the code that we had in main has been dropped into templates. Perfect. So let's open up the package.csproj file. Inside of here, we're going to get rid of this because we're not creating an executable. And I think Copilot, there you are. Copilot is going to try and help you out. Thank you, Copilot. That's very kind. But we don't need Copilot. What we do need to do is we need to use one of the snippets that I have, and I'm calling it NuGet. If I hit tab, then boom, we have all of the XML goodness that's going to build this package for us. So let's start right here with this package ID. What is this thing? It's a unique identifier that identifies our code across NuGet and across all space and time. And a lot of people have trouble trying to figure out what do I put here. And typically what I would say is do company or your name, whatever, and then use, what is this used for, and then what it is. So company, use, what it is. So in some of the examples you might see Contoso, utility, templates, whatever. So for me, because I'm doing a demo, I'm just going to do Rob, that's my name, and fun, whatever, because I've been calling it fun generators. We'll just leave it at that. Not that, thank you. And then the title of the package is going to be Rob's Fun Generator. There we are. I'll leave the author as me in the description. Let's come down here, and I'm going to do lorem. There we are. All right, skipping on down, the package project URL. This is usually GitHub for me, for a lot of other people too, so I'll just put Rob Conery and then fun. I don't have a repo up there, but if I did, this is where I would put it. There we go. Okay, and the biggest deal that we have here is the package type needs to be a template because this is going to tell MS Build and .NET what we're trying to build here, which is a template that goes up to NuGet. Include content in the pack. Yes, absolutely. The content is going to be defined down below. So we want to make sure, of course, that we include it. We don't want any build output. for obvious reasons. This would be all the binary stuff, and we don't want that. This is where things get a little confusing when we start talking about the content target folders. Now, I mentioned this in the documentation. The word content and templates tends to be interchanged in the documentation, so it can be a little bit strange, and I'm going to see if I can explain this as best I can. So when we talk about the content target folders, this is going to be the directory inside the NuGet package, which you're going to see in just a second, because I have a package explorer here that we're going to go and look at all of our stuff. Just leave this alone. Call it content. This is inside of the NuGet package. And when people use your package and install your template, they're never going to know this. They're never going to see it. They're still going to have all the code come out. This warning right here, turning off new 5128, this is a weird one. It has to do with internal stuff and internal package reconciliation. So we're just going to turn this off. It's actually in the docs. If we go over here to take a look at the XML, and you can see it's right in the documentation. They just tell you to turn it off. So that's everywhere. So going back over here to our code, no default excludes. We want to have true because we don't want to default exclude certain things. We want to make sure that we specify what is not going to be included. In this case, it's just going to be the bin and the obj folder inside of templates. We do not want to include that because Visual Studio and VS Code will generate that for us based on our platform. But we do want to make sure we include templates. Now, this is kind of the other half of the confusing thing that I was mentioning. The content target folder is content that is inside the NuGet package. Where our content is, right here, the directive, our content is inside of templates. You can call this whatever you want. In fact, if you wanted to call it content for consistency reasons, you sure could. It just needs to be specified right here. We're saying include everything. This is a glob. Include absolutely everything. And that's it. And so if we go back over here now and we check everything, these should be gone, but whatever. VS Code is adding this for us in the background. We should be good to go with this specification. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to open up our CLI shell, and then I'm going to say .NET pack this thing up for us. And boom, and there you go. You can see that it has created for us a package bin debug Rob fun generator new package. Great. So where is that? Let us go in here, and you can see, boom, it's there. So it's telling us that it can't display anything because it's binary, right? That makes sense. What would we even look at? But I have this extension installed in VS Code, and if you want to take a look, let's see, it's over here inside of packages. You can find it in here inside of package. If you go on down, it's right here, the NuGet package viewer. Why would we want to do that? Because sometimes it's useful to look at your package and make sure everything that you want is in there. And so here you can see it's kind of all YAML, but this is the thing we care about: content, templates, blah, 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 blah. All the stuff is in there from our website, all the code, and we're good to go. Okay, so what do we do with this now that we have this new package? Well, what we could do is we could head over to NuGet, we could log in, upload it, and then NuGet would look at all of this YAML information and create the listing for our project. And I'm going to show you my project in just a second to show you how all this goes down. However, if we head back over here, it's telling us something very, very important, the output for our pack. It's telling me that it's missing a README. And that's important because READMEs are very important to make sure that people know what your package is all about. In fact, it gives us a URL that we can even take a look at if we want to. There we are. Add a README Markdown file provides an overview of what your package does and how to get started. One of the things, this is a personal note on this, one of the things that drives me nuts is when I go to NuGet and I want to install a package, a lot of times you find that people just are like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to add a README, or they'll say something like, this project will create a JSON file for you. I don't know. Something a little bit more explanatory. So I mentioned that I would show you my application or my template that's up here on NuGet, and here it is, the view.web.starter. Here's the README for that. And this is the kind of thing that you want to do. You want to make it as clear as you possibly can. So how do we do this? Well, let's go back over to our project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out of here, and I'm going to jump out of here. And I'm going to leave our shell open. And there's a few files that I want to add. And what I'm going to do is inside of templates, you can see I don't have a README, I don't have anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch templates, readme.md. There we go. And then I'm going to touch templates. If you're wondering what touch does, it'll create a file for you if it doesn't exist. If a file does exist, it'll update its modified time. Next thing I need is a license file in there. And then I'm going to also add, for good measure, a code of conduct, coc.md. There we go. Now, why did I do these things? Well, it's good form because obviously we want our end users to know what's going on in our project. So inside of here, we can do hello and welcome. And then we can have instructions for how to use our code down below as thorough as we can do it. Code of conduct is a really good thing to have. And I know some people think it's overkill, especially for a small project. And perhaps that could be the case for our little template here. However, if you're going to do open source stuff, it's always a good idea to have some rules in place for people that come in and abuse you or abuse others. You want to make sure they understand the rules. I'll show you the code of conduct that I use for my project in just a second. And finally, a license is really important because if someone uses your code, they need to know the rules for using your code. So something like the MIT is what I use, but I'm not a lawyer, so go and maybe talk to your boss or look up some licensing that you think works for you. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's add one more README to the root. So I'm going to do a readme.md in here. And so I put a README in here because this is a README for the entire package. And what I might want to do is I might want to put this up on GitHub or somewhere. And if anybody finds an issue with the template itself, now they can see instructions and so on for the template README. Before I wrap up today, I did want to show you what a real live template project looks like. This is the view starter that I mentioned before, and it is up at NuGet, and you can see it right here, view.web.starter, up at NuGet, and you can see how all of this stuff is generated. If you go back over here and we crack open the view starter template, you'll see that my XML in here is a little bit different than what we've been working with. Let's collapse this down. You can see that I have a license expression in here. There's a few other things that we can put inside this property group, but I'm specifying that the MIT license is used. And then I'm also saying where the README file is. And I didn't set this up in my last project because I was just going to show it to you here. But here I'm saying it's inside Content Templates View README. And this is, again, where things get a little confusing. Content templates, where is that? Because it's certainly, there's no content directory in here. But what you have to remember is that our output target is content. And so what we're telling NuGet is look inside of the package, inside the content directory. Inside of there is going to be a templates, and then inside of there you're going to see view readme.md. And so let's take a look at that, because I do think it's important for you to understand all this. If I go to view debug, and let's just take a look at this one, and you can see all the stuff in here, but now we can see the contents. We now, inside of our NuGet package, we have content, templates, and then down below here we have an icon and a few other things. So I did want to point that out. It is confusing when you're using this thing for the very first time, trying to figure out what goes where. Okay, so let's go back over here to the CS proj file. We have a package icon, as I just mentioned, and let's collapse this so we can read this better. A package icon, it's in content templates, and then icon.png. My icon is just a view icon, Vue.js. And if you go on down here, you can see everything is just about the same, except since I have front-end code in this template, I wanted to be sure that I also excluded node modules, because keeping things light and simple, that's the name of the game. Well, that's that. Let's go back over here, and I wanted to show you a code of conduct. If you don't have a code of conduct handy, I would urge you to just use the .NET Foundation code of conduct. And then this code right here, you can find it just about anywhere. You can also go to .NETFoundation.org and then code of conduct and take a look at what they've got. Modify it for your own needs. The README file, this is what I was mentioning before. This is the README that is up on GitHub that people who want to help with a template, they can read this and see how to help out, really. But inside of the templates here, I also have another README, and this is where all of the big, long explanation goes, and I would urge you to be as thorough as you possibly can. And then finally, the license. I'm using the MIT license. You want to make sure that you come in here, put in the right copyright, make sure everything is updated as it should be. This protects you as well as your end user. So really, you've got to make sure if you're doing open source stuff or sharing your code, a copyright is in place as well as a license. Make sure they know how to use it with a README and, of course, how they're going to behave if they're going to help out. All right, well, that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope it's been informative for you. Making templates is surprisingly easy, and it's also kind of fun, especially if you have some great code to share with others. All right, I will see you again soon. Thanks.